Good afternoon. My name is Chris Rangel. Today I'd like to speak to you on question number 7. Question number 7 is about being appropriate and inappropriate. It talks about in an individual sport such as wrestling, is it ever appropriate for a wrestler to scale back so as not to embarrass his opponent? A couple things that we need to look at as we walk into this question is the sports that you participate in. Wrestling happens to be a combative sport. So you have, yes, it's an individual thing. There is a code of ethics. There's a warrior's code when you go out there and you step on the mat. And it's 100%. There's, as a former coach, as a former collegiate wrestler, one thing that you have to take in consideration, the match isn't over till the match is over. And a lot of state championships, national championships, even going on beyond that, can be won or lost in the last split second. So for somebody that might be losing 8-1, 7-0, when they start getting down in there, if I were to let up, if I was a competitor, there could be a split second where that momentum gets changed, and it doesn't matter at the quality at that point, because if you get caught in a move, you could cost your whole championship season, your match, your team's points, etc. However, I understand the question to this. If we're in a competitive mode, there are certain rules and procedures that are in place. They call ceilings or tech rules. And for those instances, you definitely want to know that if I run up my score very quickly, and I tech the person, that saves them from getting embarrassed. It's once we get ahead of certain rules, they stop the match, you shake hands, you leave as gentlemen. If I get out there and I get my pin, the thing is that the points that I get for pinning my opponent, and that's the ultimate goal in a combative sport, is I'm going to get maximum points for my team. Will it embarrass the other player? Of course. However, even the best of the best get pinned. You got to look at core values of the sport. Again, it's a combative sport, so it takes on a different role than if I were to play baseball or softball or basketball or something where it's competitive to competitive, but it's not combative. The other part of this is in what area are we looking at? If I were wrestling an old-timers match and I'm 50 and my opponent's 18, sometimes at that point, then you would consider, well, I need to scale back a little bit if I'm the 18-year-old, as to not embarrass this guy in front of his teammates or his former kids that he might have coached or whatnot. You could probably see that. That's not a combative role. That's two guys competing in a fun area. But if we're talking about real collegiate athletics, you have to give that 100%. It's a warrior's code. I take a look at a couple other issues too. In 2006, in the Insight Bowl, Minnesota blew a 38-7 lead. They're in the third quarter, 38-7. They did the gentleman's thing, pulled back, only to lose 44-41 against Texas Tech. That's huge. Sometimes when you scale back, because a warrior's not going to back down. In the USTA, that's the United States Tennis Association, Coach T. Leonard says this quote, "Remember, being polite to your opponent can be rude to the competitor." And, so I started looking at things. John Smith, one of the best wrestlers ever to grace the mat, he believes the same way. You give 100% in everything that you do. You don't back off until the whistle starts and when the whistle stops. The pure component of ethics, sportsmanship, and competitive spirit is laid out on the mat. 100%. You shake hands before you start. You shake hands when you walk off. You give 100%. Your opponent at that point would feel more embarrassed if he were to back off. And the other thing of it is he's going to walk away thinking, what could I have really done? I mean, there's There's 2 minutes first period, 2 minutes second period, 2 minutes third period. If I were to back off at any time and not give my opponent the full ability to maybe catch me into a move or something like that, I'm robbing him. And at that point, you know, it is a rude thing because I'm not giving him my best ability. The match isn't over until, like they say, the fat lady sings. So in my opinion, I think when it comes down to core values, give your opponent 100%. Play at the highest level of integrity that you can. And if you feel like that you need to back off, you know what? You need to either tech that person, pin that person, or be at risk of, one, losing, and two, losing face to your opponent. A couple other things that you want to look at. Stalling in basketball, some of those tactics. When you start looking at those tactics, I feel like that's unsportsmanlike conduct. I mean, if you have to stall to win, you know, yes, it's a good coaching tactic because, you know, when you put pen to paper, and you don't want to lose the ball or do that, you know, you're going to pass the ball. You're going to protect that win. But if you're a true competitor and a warrior and you believe in your players, you press that, you press, and you play till that whistle blows. As far as running up the score, I feel at some point, maybe in a team sport, baseball, softball, basketball, and football, you're running up the points. And that, I feel like once you get to a certain level, outside of a run rule or outside of them calling a mercy game, they don't have mercy in basketball. You don't have mercy in football. So running up the score in those types of sports and putting a full point press against, full court press against a less skilled team, that's poor sportsmanship. Or soccer, poor sportsmanship. But when you're in a combative, one-on-one, individual sport, you have to get up 100%. And since it is man going against man, woman going against woman, when you're doing that, you're testing your ultimate spirit. You're testing the ultimate warrior. And I feel like anytime that you let that guard down, and just like Coach Leonard had mentioned, Coach John Smith, Dan Gable, the greatest wrestler of all times. You know, when you visit with those type of competitive athletes, they'll kind of agree on that subject. So, to me, never back down. Play the game full out. It's what it was intended for. The mercy rule is in place. That's what it's intended for. And as a competitor, even when I had to face world champions, NCAA champions, I wanted their 100% all out. Was it embarrassing at times? Of course. Did it feel good after it was over? Of course, because I got to see their best. And that's what I would expect from my athletes. Give 100% in everything that you do. And that's how you play the game. Thank you.